Cheat on me with my best friend? I'll wreck your career and publicly humiliate the both of yous. The last story ain't have a part 2. If I get an update, I'll update you. So let's get into this one. Follow me on Instagram, please, so I can get monetized and get new teeth. Thank you. Kakahead and Sarah have been like family to my wife and I for over several years. Practically ever since we moved in across the street from them. 4 of us were extremely tight. Our kids were the same age as theirs, and we're all good friends. We were one big family unit. We had dinner together a few times a week. We went on vacations together. I truly saw Kakahead as a brother, and my wife and Sarah were very close too. 5 months ago, I was completely blindsided by the discovery of an affair between my wife and Kakahead. My wife left her email open on our computer, and I saw an email from her longtime therapist saying that Kakahead would be joining her at an upcoming session again. What the My mind started racing. Why in the world would Kakahead be going to her therapy sessions without my knowledge? I did a quick search and found some other emails to and from the therapist proving that Kakahead had been going to sessions together with her for about 6 weeks. That's a month and a half for those of you who bad with math. Alright, so boom, I checked our mobile phone account and discovered that since late summer, they've been exchanging hundreds of texts every day. I'm talking peaking at nearly 500 a day by the holidays. Speaking of holidays, my wife and I both hosted our families, parents, siblings, etc. for both Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And Kakahead and Sarah joined us either for dinner or after dinner on both holidays. Text records showed that the entire time they were at our house celebrating with our family, my wife and Kakahead were texting each other across the room. They were doing that pretty much every time the 4 of us hung out for months. And you know, like all day, every day in general. But what bothers me the most is that they were doing it with Sarah and I right there. I confronted my wife with the evidence, and she admitted that yes, she and Kakahead had fallen in love. It just happened. I don't know how, but I love him, and I just don't feel anything with you anymore. Alejandro. I'm sorry, that's not what it said. It got real Lady Gaga. I'm sorry. They going on a school district trip together. Something had happened in the hotel room, and things had moved fast and quickly from there. She explained as I laid face down on the couch, unable to look at her, that they already made plans to move out and to divorce me and Sarah. While they didn't plan to move in together immediately because of the kid, they probably would do so eventually. How about the meetings with the therapist were supposedly mostly for the purpose of finding a way to break this off to me and Sarah as gently as possible, because they were also very concerned for our well-being. Sarah and I are fairly certain that they weren't planning on telling us about the affair at all. They were simply going to discover their feelings for one another after several months down the line, and they'd come up with some other reason.
I commented from my own backup account for part 2, so here we go. Follow it. Picking up where we left off. Sarah and I are fairly certain that they weren't planning on telling us about the affair at all. They were simply going to discover their feelings for one another down the line after they come up with some other reason to divorce the 2 of us. My wife moved out 2 months ago. I was and still am utterly destroyed. I cry every day. Shoot, I cried writing the first few paragraphs of the story just now. I worry non-stop about the impact on our kids, but I am also not exactly a shrinking violet when I feel I've been wronged. And in this case, I was objectively very, very wronged. So a couple of years ago, Kakahead ran for a Board of Education seat as a pretty extreme underdog. I helped him with the campaign materials and debate prep, and my wife, a well-known school district employee, this becomes important later, got the word out as best she could. Much to our surprise, he actually won in a squeaker by just a few dozen votes. Being on the board became the center of Kakahead's world. He joined every committee that he could. This turned into the foundation of the affair with my wife, as they were constantly going on school events and meetings together on weekends and evenings. Once I discovered the affair, my thoughts turned pretty quickly to revenge, and it occurred to me that an extramarital affair between a member of the Board of Education and an employee of the school district was at least very bad politics and possibly violated district policy. Making things far worse for them was that my wife was in the running for an open administrative position, and everyone knew that she was more or less guaranteed the job and the major pay raise that came with it. She had just finished her master's degrees in school administration, and at the urging of her principal and the superintendent, so that she could be promoted to the specific position. I had plenty of evidence of the affair. Texts from both of them admitting to it, text records showing that they were texting 100 times a day, emails to and from the therapist, etc. You can't show those. That's a HIPAA violation. That's like doxing, I think, in a way. I considered simply emailing all of the evidence to the board and the superintendent, but I felt like as the grieving, betrayed spouse might not be seen as a credible source. So instead, I invented a fictitious, furious friend who was planning on showing up to the next board meeting and publicly shaming the two of them for their affair. I told my wife that I tried to talk this person down, but couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't show up and humiliate them publicly. As I expected, this led Kakahead to conclude that the only option for them was to preemptively admit the affair to the board. The superintendent subsequently recommended that Kakahead resign, which he did. Sarah said that she was utterly humiliated and crushed and barely got out of bed for a few days afterwards. Once word of the affair and Kakahead's resignation started getting around, the superintendent, a longtime friend of both my wife and Kakahead, contacted my wife and tearfully informed her that it was no longer politically appropriate for her to be promoted to an administrative position within the district. The position that had been lined up for her was later filled by an outside candidate.
Part 3 of the petty revenge that this husband got on his wife for cheating on him with his best friend. This sent waves of confusion and rumor throughout the district, as it was pretty well known that my wife was getting the job. The day after she was informed that she wasn't getting the promotion, my wife and I, despite our crumbling marriage, took our son out to breakfast together on his birthday. And a parent stopped by our table to congratulate her on her new role. She said thanks and excused herself to go cry in the bathroom for a while. Alright, so boom, I let the dust settle for a couple of weeks, right? And then, right before my wife moved out, let them in on my little secret. It was never a furious friend threatened to expose them in the first place. Just me, your boy, sir. Out. Shabuya, shabuya. Roll call, just me. Word of all of this has gotten around to our fairly small town, which Kakahead grew up in, and my wife has worked in for nearly 20 years. Oh, these some old people, too. Oh, my wife refuses to talk to me about how things are at work now. He petty. But I've heard from some people I know in the district that her and her formerly spotless reputation has taken a major hit. Kakahead, formerly a gregarious social presence in our neighborhood and at events and pubs in town, has completely gone underground and barely emerges to mow his lawn. He moving out soon to a shitty little townhouse, which is all he can afford due to all the child support he gonna have to pay his wife. My wife and Kakahead claim that they plan on trying to make things work together, despite all of the public humiliation. I wish them lots of luck with that. I'm sure it'd be lots of fun to show their faces together in time. Why did I just get to hear when I realized that he said there's a log of their texts and calls? Oh, a few months before I discovered the affair, obviously her phone number. Oh, man. Wait, I'm gonna have to go back and get that comment if you want me to go look at that, because it might be good. Answers to some common questions in the comments. Are you and Sarah a thing? I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking that. Like, y'all got all the money now. Y'all got everybody money. Y'all just power couple for real, for real. Now we're friends. We've been incredibly important to each other ever since this all started, and I've certainly gotten a lot closer, but not in the way everyone's thinking. This would all be so much harder to deal with if I didn't have her to lean on. And she said she feels the same way about me. We're going through basically the exact same situation with the same players after all. Kakahead hasn't moved out yet. Once he does, we plan to go back to getting the kids together more often like they used to do it. It'll never be the same, of course. She already does come over with the kids from time to time, but it's just tough while Kakahead's constant presence across the street. Didn't your revenge hurt both sets of kids? Not really. Kakahead has a day job. The Board of Education was just his